All right, fellow team players, Joe and I are back this week for another edition of our fantasy lineups. This time, we're walking into the playoffs, and in FanDuel, we're just thinking about Sunday's games because Saturday is not on the slate in the way that we are thinking about. So we're going to have to mess around a little bit and figure things out. But help us out, and welcome to Local Football Flavor.
Welcome to Local Football Flavor, where we talk to local fans to get the real information of what's going on with their team. Yeah, Bob, and here I am, clicking the right buttons everywhere.
'Tis the holiday season, as they say.
Yes, it is. And why is my button
there
not
I
liking
go.
me? There you are. All right. We're all over this stuff here earlier in the day. All right, Bob.
It's late night. It's 7:30. I was just at a little holiday celebration, and I mean, Joe, you asked me this question a couple weeks ago, and I think it's important for our fan base to know this: is that if you are having a beverage, are you more likely to have that beverage in celebration or in loss? See, myself, I'm more of a celebratory beverage drinker at the best moment. I love to celebrate things, and the holidays, a win, it's worth celebrating.
Hell yeah, it is. And I'm the same way in that department. It's a slippery slope. You start drinking over bad things. You start drinking over victories. That's what we're talking about.
That means you'll be more successful.
It's a driving force sometimes now, ain't it?
Thinking about that and thinking about success. I would like to, in a fantasy world here, put Isaiah Pacheco in the running back position almost immediately. I don't care how much he costs. Houston is, and I was saying this to you earlier, I say a lot of things about teams, and I think I sometimes curse these things. But it just definitely feels that at this price point, especially with just the Sunday slate of games, that you can't not play him. I mean, you have a decision to not play him if you want to, but it feels to me like you can't not play him. In addition to that, another $7,800 back is Miles Sanders. Against Chicago's defense, it seems like you can't not play these two guys. They are priced at a point to sell. And if you go down this list, if you seriously consider anybody else underneath them on this list, there is not many backs that are healthy other than maybe DeAndre Swift that I would start at that dollar amount. I mean, I don't know what you have to say about these two guys, but these two are jumping off the page.
Let's start with a little bias that's happening in today's episode. When I built my team, I tried to put as many guys as I need for my playoff games.
Oh, I hear that.
So that
I
being
don't
said,
want to curse anybody,
I fully respect that. I picked up Pacheco. You sent me a text about half an hour before Pacheco's first game being nailed as a starter. I basically picked him up immediately. And I have been this bench holding him the whole time.
Yeah.
And now that he's here,
I have him in.
I actually did that with 6 running backs. I had 1 wide receiver on my bench. I had 1 backup quarterback. The rest were all running backs, hoping one of them would have panned out. And Pacheco's certainly one of those guys that did.
I mean, let's face it. The only running back that wasn't successful against the Houston Texans to a degree was Saquon Barkley. And that is because he just didn't play. But the thing about Pacheco is that, I mean, I could be deeply wrong in this, and Clyde Edwards-Helaire comes out of the woodwork and does something crazy, or somebody else. But they're gonna, if
Edwards-Helaire's gonna phase out of that offense.
If Patrick Mahomes goes up big in this game, they're gonna see how much they can get out of Pacheco so that they can most likely move on from Helaire. And so
that's 100% true. And as someone who does some prop bets here on the side, which by the way, big money coming for the Steelers next win, whenever that is.
What is Pacheco's line set at?
Pacheco is 7,600 for his cost.
No. I'm saying his line on on like individual game line in
If you do
FanDuel itself.
Pacheco as 2 or more touchdowns plus 1,300, you want to get on that one, baby. I'm telling you
Plus
right now.
1,300. What's his
2 or more
yardage?
touchdowns.
What are they suggesting his yardage could be?
I'm going to have to pull that one up separate here.
I would say it'd be like 70.
So Pacheco's exact figures here.
He's got to be like a plus 120 for a touchdown.
Let me get here everything here correctly, Bob. I don't want to misspeak to the people because that was also me looking at my odds yesterday. They obviously can change here as we're looking live right now.
I mean, they've gotten better. I mean, and if you just look at it while you're looking that up, if you just look at these two guys and you say to yourself, okay, I'm going to play the guys against the worst defenses in the league. Well, Chicago's run defense has been absolutely putrid, and so is Houston's. And so is it going to be a Miles Sanders game? Totally could be, because they have already clinched a playoff spot. They've basically already clinched the crown of the
Pacheco one touchdowns minus 115.
Yeah. So, I mean, if
that's gone down dramatically. He's only plus 480 at 2 touchdowns.
Go to his just yardage total. What's his yardage total? It's got to be at 70.5.
For rushing yards, it is 68.5.
Yeah.
Bob is already telling you hammer that over.
I mean, it seems to me like both them and Miles Sanders. And if you go and look up Miles Sanders' line, and this is something to consider, is that
if you do a side bet of him over 80 yards, it's plus 148.
If you look at what Vegas's odds are putting out, and you are making your detailed decisions in your playoff fantasy matchup this week, consider what Vegas is telling you. Vegas is telling
you he's the odds-on favorite to get in the end zone at least once.
Vegas is not in the game to lose money.
They are not. And to further your point here, Miles Sanders has virtually identical costs for his game in terms of touchdowns. So when we look at this, they're going to score. I mean, that's basically what Vegas is telling you.
There is a lot of running threats in.
And his yardage is also the same at 68.5. You could do a nice little double parlay here. And I'm telling you, as someone who's rooting for both these guys in fantasy, that I'm going to be making this parlay. Both of them over 80 on the ground, 2 touchdowns anyway.
Chalk it up. Go to quarterbacks, because that is where the next money needs to be spent in these lineups. Now,
as someone who owns Mahomes, I'm very hurt by seeing that Houston's the number 1 pass defense, but that's because they run all day.
Exactly. Now, Houston's pass defense, Patrick Mahomes is going to score a touchdown. It's not going to be a problem. Now, a piece of me wants to take Jalen Hurts for the same reason I'm looking at Miles Sanders. However, if you go further down this list, it gets, and I don't want to skip over Justin Herbert, but at that price point, it's a little much for me.
Oh, wait a minute. That just got announced today. Toilets getting another week ahead of touchdowns for Russell Wilson.
Toilets, baby.
Toilets.
I am on the toilet bandwagon.
Oh, me too.
Oh, by the way, for those people out there that have been checking out TikToks that we recommend, I highly recommend going to this one guy. I can't remember who it was. The drinkability of a quarterback. Who would I want to drink with? Kyler Murray is last on the list. If you think about all the quarterbacks in the NFL, who you would want to drink with the least, Kyler Murray.
Tom Brady's on that list for me too.
Tom Brady's got stories. Kyler Murray doesn't.
I don't think Tom Brady is willing to share his stories.
I don't know, man.
I put Aaron Rodgers same ballpark. The one I'd want to drink with the most, and this is a little disagreement for his list, is Jameis, baby. That guy gets loose, Jameis, man.
Why is Jameis on this list? Is he starting?
He's the same price as Dalton. It's one of these toss.
So they don't know. They don't really know what's going to happen yet.
Yeah.
I will tell you this. From what I'm seeing from the quarterbacks priced below this point, anybody 7,000 and lower, I really
Trubisky might not be the starter for everyone to talk about.
I'm really not interested.
It might be Rudolph.
Yeah, to be honest with you, I'm really not interested in any of those quarterbacks. You could make a case, go down just a little bit. You can make a case for Mike White. You can make a case for go up a little bit more. You're going down too far. I don't want to go down.
McCoy's playing, isn't he?
Yeah, but he's playing against Denver. I don't want that. That's unless the value is there at other positions, I'm not touching that with a 10-foot pole.
Where is Rudolph?
Right there, 6,000.
So I'm just saying, if we could build
Carolina's
a super one around it,
like sometimes decent, sometimes not decent, right? So if you're looking at a quarterback to take, your quarterback you have to take this week is Dak Prescott. And the reason I say that isn't because I like him a lot this week, but he provides you a value that you still have a lot of money to spend. And wide receivers have been our kryptonite this year. And Dak is a solid quarterback, and Jacksonville lets up points. And let's not forget about that.
Jacksonville lets up points. That's a fact.
If they don't get to Dak because Dak is handing the ball off to Pollard, okay, cool. But that game could see a lot of points. I'm not saying it's going to, but I said, it could see a lot of points, and it could be in like the 35-24 range, something like that. Jacksonville's not dealing with any weather-related problems. CeeDee Lamb is still doing great. I mean, another week with all of the weapons. I'm saying that Dak could easily do 2 touchdowns and 250 yards.
As we're talking about Dallas, I need to do a preview for this. We will be talking to an Eagles fan here in preparation for the Dallas Eagles game, which is on Christmas Eve. And I'm excited for that one. As far as a non-Steelers game to be excited for, as much as I saw the Niners do what they did last night, I have a pretty strong feeling that the winner of that Philly-Dallas game is going to the Super Bowl. And I'm pretty sure that team going to be wearing green.
So it could be
that out there right now.
That game's going to mean a lot. That game is definitely going to mean a lot.
That game could mean the division and therefore home field. If Philly wins it, they almost get home field by default.
Now, the other quarterback on this list that I am equally as interested in, because I'm not really sure what Philly is going to want to do this week or next week or in the next 4 weeks. Justin Fields is interesting too. Philly has a great defense and a great defense, but I could see them doing something where it's like they get up early, maybe by 14, and they start benching people.
The thing is, Philly has so many players on their defensive line. There's not enough to bench. It's not capable.
That's why I feel Dak is the play here.
Yeah, and just on the Justin Fields comment about why he's not going to be in my lineup either, is that he is not good with penetration. Chicago, yeah, touche salesman. Chicago, when they really get their running game going, it is all based around power blocking, double teams, primarily with this left guard and center double teaming, and then the right guard and right tackle double teaming. Philadelphia brings just too much talent to be double teamed. Like, you flat out cannot double team Fletcher Cox without having Hassan Reddick destroy you.
Bro, stop.
These are all names, dude. I'm not making this up.
You cannot keep saying double team after talking about penetration and then mention Fletcher Cox. You can't do it. Moving on. I have already
put a super early, possibly one of these throw your money away bets, but they give you incredibly stupid odds. Hassan Reddick, Super Bowl MVP.
What is the odds on that? Like plus 15,000?
Oh, bigger than that, baby. It's stupid money.
Well,
we're talking putting down $10 and getting back $500,000.
All right. Go to the defense, because this is a much maligned defense that I'm looking at to play this week. But the New Orleans Saints playing Desmond Ridder this week is definitely has piqued my attention. Likewise, Arizona playing Brett Rippon has also piqued my attention, and Denver playing Colt McCoy has definitely piqued my attention.
Those, the one I suspect will do of the quarterbacks you just said, the one that will do the best is McCoy. First off,
absolutely. He has
McCoy,
more in the tank.
he has more upstairs as a starting point. Obviously, it's hard to judge a rookie. I don't want to throw Atlanta under the bus there. But in terms of what I know McCoy can drop back and put the ball anywhere on the field on his first read. And when you're throwing the ball to Hollywood and to Hop, you don't really need to have a whole lot of going on upstairs, which is the entire reason Kyler Murray can
The other defense that is on this list that we laughed at this last week, but Cleveland smoked Houston, put up like 33 points. Kansas City has a guy named Nick Bolton, and Nick Bolton is a really, really good player. Now, granted, Kansas City's defense, not phenomenal, not great, but I would be remiss if I did not consider anybody playing Houston and just coughing it up and just going, take the 5,000, take it against Houston because they suck.
Again, which one are you going with here? Because there's a lot of options. We didn't look at the very bottoms yet.
I don't even need to look at the bottom.
I
don't even need to look at the bottom.
Atlanta against New Orleans is interesting. New Orleans ain't going anywhere.
But it's not that interesting because Atlanta's defense can't score. So there's no chance at points in that direction.
That's true.
At least I know Nick Bolton, if he gets his hands on the ball, he's going to try to get that ball into the end zone. I know that the Saints, if they get the ball, they're taking it to the house against Atlanta. And I know if Denver,
there's no one on Atlanta who can catch
Arizona, it's there. So, like, I just want to put that out there that these are three defenses that I'm considering.
Plus, with Kansas City, you know they're going to run the clock off, so the defense won't be out there as much. So, who are you leaning towards ultimately, man?
I mean, ultimately, my first read is New Orleans at 4,500.
All right.
Desmond Ridder.
I also want to point this out. Do not sit on the Patriots. That team is making a run, and Vegas is about a quarter of an inch of pressing the quit button all the way down.
I have been talking about the Patriots for weeks. They have very slim chances at this point to make the playoffs, but
they are making the playoffs, dude. They're taking Miami's spot.
I'm digging them.
I 100% tell you they're taking Miami's spot.
So let's go to tight end. Let's float that tight end that way.
Let's get the cheap one out of the way. Are we cutting the check?
No.
Andrews obviously plays on Saturday, so he's not an option. Are we cutting the Kelsey check? After all the discussion you gave me on Tuesday about how Kelsey should be 1-1, are we spending the money on him?
Houston's so bad. And Kansas City could easily put up 55 points on them.
They could.
But they're not going to. They're going to put in the backup to Kelsey at some point in that game because Andy Reid is smart and he's not going to keep Kelsey out there more than he needs to be out there. So this could easily be a game.
This time of the year, yeah.
This is easily a game where Kelsey could go 8 for 75 in the first half, touchdown, and you don't see him again the next half.
I would love it to be 2 catches and then, all right, we're done. Because I'm playing Kelsey in the playoffs.
Actually, what I'm proposing is something totally ludicrous, and it's the backup tight end for Kansas City.
Ooh.
I'm getting spicy.
We're
not putting a lot of money on this one. I mean, I wouldn't do it if I'm in $100.
This is a $10 rider. All right, which DFS. One is their backup? Is it Gray or Winchester?
Gray is the backup. And if you look, go click on him for a moment, just so you can see what happened in that 4-touchdown crazy-ass game.
Looks like a stoner in that picture.
All right. But, there is a potential that when Kelsey is on the field, they even sub him in at various points in time to do something, right? There was that game against Tennessee where he got 45 points.
He's going to target every single week. Like, you don't normally see that out of – I'm good with it. He's like their 5th option, but if Kelsey gets benched –
it gives us room because if I'm looking at the tight end situation and I'm actually going to price myself into a tight end, just go to all of them.
I have one glaring selection.
The one that I'm super interested in this scenario is Taysom Hill.
Bingo.
Um,
He will be
now,
mine.
Now at 6,200, that's a really good price for him this week. But he could easily pull an O grade, do nothing.
He could.
After the
He
bye
also
week,
could
I'm
run
hoping
for
he
2
does
touchdowns.
something. But this gives me basically $2,000 more dollars to spend.
Then there's incredible value there. So with that being said, we are at $7,000 a man. That is smoking, Bob. $7,000 a man lets you do some fun things. You can go at 8 and a 6. You can obviously ride out 4 7s. You can go a lot of different directions here. What are we feeling?
So I would like. Can you go to all teams for me for a moment?
We are on all teams.
No. Can you click on the tab that says all teams for a moment?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Can you go to the Eagles?
Sure can. Oh,
all right.
Double click. That's never good.
So 7,200, Devonta Smith.
That's correct.
Actually looks kind of good. I'm not 100. I've never really been 100% sold on Devonta Smith. If you look at him, it's given his fantasy points per game as 10.
Well, we got to remember this is a half PPR setup.
Yeah, but I am 100% on board. In the past 2 games, he's been getting looks even with AJ Brown.
Last 5 games, 8 targets or more. I mean, I love that. Of those
7,200 keeps me within the budget. And he's getting the ball. So
he's getting the ball. He's been in the end zone 3 of the last 5 games, as I said, and they're getting it to him. And
I'm okay with that.
It's consistent regardless versus an elite defense or a poor defense.
And they give them the ball. And I think that if they were to start pulling guys, I don't think they pull him right away.
No, you don't pull a second-year guy compared to AJ Brown. No.
Yeah. So
and I also think that I don't think Chicago will be pulling anyone this week. Just for the simple fact that this is
they don't have the division. Do they have the division one?
No, they do not have the division clinched yet. So they have wild card clinched, but not the division.
So that will happen next week then.
If they beat Dallas.
All right.
So
let's go to the next wide receiver.
Let's go back to all, I'm assuming.
Yeah. And let's go to New Orleans for a moment.
Sure. The Saints are coming.
All right. I am heavily interested in Chris Olave this week.
Sure. How could you not be? He's a top 15 receiver in all PPR setups. He's on fire. And then we look at him last 6 games.
The last
target's a little inconsistent.
The last time he had a good game was against the Rams.
Mm-hmm.
And, there's some inconsistency there. But against San Francisco and Tampa Bay, those games were just not in the Saints' favor. And they were pretty much, it was not working. Whatever was happening wasn't working.
In week 1 against Atlanta was his first game ever. They still gave him the 3 for 3. So
regardless of who's the quarterback situation, he has been getting the ball. What he does with the ball against bad defenses is,
good.
But and Atlanta is not a barn burner defense. It's not going to blow your socks off. So it's a divisional game. They want to win. Who's going to get the ball? Olave, Hill, Kamara. Those guys have to get the ball. If not, it's a shame.
On a fun fact, that was the first ever strategies of football I did was the Atlanta Saints game in week 1 because it was an upset that Atlanta was there. And Atlanta controlled that game by running the ball. And basically the Saints couldn't do anything until the 4th quarter. And then they just hit Winston Shuck it mode. And that was when Olave started to turn on. That was the 10 minutes Mike Thomas was on the field. Almost all of his fantasy points came up in that game. I mean, he played for 2 weeks, so kind of the fault. But the point is, even though Atlanta chokehold that time of possession, the Saints still got the ball in the air at the end of the game and really moved it. and that was with Jameis.
Yeah.
So I'm just saying that's not crazy. And I imagine that there's a lot of we're not losing to Atlanta going on in that
Yeah.
NFC South.
And, speaking of losing, I'm really curious about garbage time this week.
Mm-hmm.
One of the games that I'm super curious about garbage time this week is that Houston game.
Sure.
Houston, Kansas City. And more so on the Houston side of things. Because like I said, and this is what's keeping me away from Kansas City's defense, even though Cleveland put up a ton of points against Houston's defense. There could potentially be some garbage time touchdowns. Kansas City could definitely.
Well, Cleveland also put up a ton of points because they had a 98-yard punt return. You got to remember that. That punt return counts for the defense.
Yeah, but it's something that I'm like, okay, when they put Jeff Driscoll in or they keep Davis Mills in, I don't really care what's going on there. But Nico Collins has been pretty solid.
Oh, I like where you're going with that.
And I just want to see what he looks like for a moment here.
He's
also
out.
Chris Moore.
Miko's out.
Yeah. So Chris Moore, if you go to him, he got a lot of attention in garbage time last week because of Nico being out.
11 targets. Wow.
Right.
So, 11 targets and brought 10 of them in. That's no joke. And that's against the Cowboys.
Did Nico go down last week?
Let me pull that up for you. Did Miko play against the boys is the question. Miko did not play against the boys.
Okay,
so Miko's also out this week. That seems like a good steal there at $6,000. Chris Moore. He's going to be their number one target. He got 11 targets. I mean, you bring in 10 targets out of 11. I mean, that's what St. Brown did last year. I mean, that was a maw exactly. The end of the year, no one cared about it. Bad team. All of a sudden, boom. Why is this guy getting doubted on?
I'm not saying it's a great play, but I'm saying
it's 6,000. It's a very great play.
It's definitely worth considering.
I think it's intelligent as can be. You got 7,700 left for your flex. I like that. I like that a lot, Bob.
Let's explore this flex a little bit.
All right. So in the flex, I am clicking every button wrong. Sorry for this, all you viewing audience. I'll get better at clicking, I promise. One day it'll happen. So we're looking at your boy Kamara, who you have only hated on nonstop all year long.
Well, if you click on him, you'll know why it's worth it.
Well, let's explore your pain. Wow. This is like mixing light. So he has 1 week of 38, 1 week of 20, and then basically nothingness. Mm-hmm. Dude, that is... I understand. This is how you build your teams, though. You go for those super high-end guys and just ride the low tides.
I mean, it could be a week where he goes off this week. I mean, it could
he went off against the green ones. He basically went off against bad teams. That's just the way it is.
Mm-hmm.
I have no faith in their coaching staff in New Orleans. Certainly one of the ones that I would put odds on getting shifted in the offseason. Would be New Orleans for sure. But yeah.
All right. So let's explore a little bit. See what the values are around this price range, because we may have to flip some things around. Mike Williams
looks nice.
Mike Williams looks nice. Tennessee is definitely a beatable.
Yeah, worst to wide receivers.
Defensive backfield.
And Herbert's on fire. I mean, don't look now. That team's on fire. I mean, it is. No one's giving them credit at all.
So considering Mike Williams, but also considering another Williams out of Detroit, go to Detroit's lineup for a moment. Not Jamal. Go to Detroit's lineup for a moment. And I want to see that wide receiver.
Jameson. All right.
So I'm not saying to take him this week.
No, you're not selling me on that one. You sold me on more.
He came
but you're
off
not
an
selling.
injury, but it's definitely a guy I'm keeping my eye on as the next couple of weeks go forward, because if they can work him into the game with DJ Chark and with Amon-Ra St. Brown, the Lions can make the playoffs.
I want the Lions to make the playoffs. I want the Lions to make the playoffs so bad.
Realistically speaking, though, Mike Williams has to be the flex in this situation.
Oh, yeah.
Now, we can go with a lower tier flex and upgrade Noah Gray to Taysom Hill, but that's going to take a lot of wiggle room to do. And
you only have 5,000, so you really can't.
I don't necessarily see $1,000 difference. Like if you go to 6,200 flex, I'm not sold on a 6,200 guy, unlike I was on Chris Moore.
I got it. You already put him in your lineup, and you don't normally hit on a couple of them. So we're looking at 6,200 guys. I mean, you're looking at George Pickens. We keep going down that train. It keeps not working. Yeah. Taysom Hill.
That's what I'm saying. Like, if I'm taking Noah Gray out and putting Taysom Hill in, like, I'd have to go down on Mike Williams.
You'd have to go 1,500. You'd actually would be in the mid fives.
Yeah, I don't think it's worth it.
You'd be taking Ellinger.
I'm okay with this lineup. I would also consider maybe going down on the Saints to go to maybe Denver.
We can explore what that looks like.
That would give us a little bit more money. But like I said about Noah Gray, I think that Kelsey's going to come off the field. I don't think that with Houston, they're going to play him the whole game.
I like it.
3,700. Right. Submit it. Let's see let's let it ride.
All right, let's submit that. We'll hit the ad break as we set up for the second one here. We'll be back with everyone on the other side. This episode is sponsored by the podcast Father and Joe. Father and Joe aims to bring individuals into a better relationship with God. Each episode discusses an element of the human experience that we all can relate to, as well as questions about faith. What are indulgences? What's going on with purgatory? Why can I mentally grasp the concept of God, but I don't feel him in my heart? During each episode of Father and Joe, we are invited to enhance our relationships, and in doing so, we will improve ourselves and society. Download Father and Joe every Tuesday. So we thank you for watching this episode of Local Football Flavor. We know there's a lot of different things you can be doing with your time, so we appreciate you either listening or watching us in whatever way you're digesting us here today. So we here at the episode want to try to request helping us out in one of three different ways, because all three ways will help us. First is the analytics. If you can either click like or subscribe on whatever platform you're watching us on, it makes a tremendous difference, as those algorithms kind of control what our popularity will be, and you, our listeners, are the only one that can help us win those analytics games. So by clicking like and subscribe, it makes a tremendous deal for us, and leaving reviews and comments help tremendously as well. So that's what we ask as you as a listener to do. If you're interested in the show and you'd like to be a guest on the program, please reach out to us. We love talking to people, and it's our conversation about your favorite team, letting people know what's really going on that the national media normally misses. So we would love to have those conversations with you. And the third way is the sponsors. As you've noticed, we've already had some sponsors reach out to us here. You can see one down here in the corner. You can easily be in the scroller along the bottom, having your own personal message, as well as all other fun things like controlling the jersey I'm going to wear, or that little teddy bear behind me can be one of your team logos things. You can make me wear a stupid cheese head if that's what you want to do. All of those things are available by reaching out to us at localfootballflavor@gmail.com. We thank you guys very much for being a part of the show. And now let's resume to today's episode. So, Bob, as I mentioned, I'm going to begin here with the lineup that I have much bias for, because who I'm going to be rooting for all weekend to have my team, my fantasy team here, make the playoffs. And I'm going to start here at the defensive realm. one of the ways you score points being a defense is turnovers, obviously. The other way is sacks. I look at Carolina's front as being a sieve. I look at TJ Watt being angry, and he's still the defensive player of the year. And maybe I get lucky and one of these corners actually catch a ball. Looking at you, Sutton, and we get a turnover. So I'm starting with the Steelers defense. I think this is a game that actually the Steelers are going to win by 10. And, I think it's a very easy,
Okay.
I think it's the easiest dog of the week, quite frankly. So that being said, that's where I started. That gives me a little bit of indication of some of the other directions I'm going here. Earlier in the thing, you said you wouldn't look at anyone lower than, I believe, what was the number you said?
7,800, I believe, or 7,200.
I am on Najee this week. He's finally healthy. They're going to be playing a third string quarterback potentially. That's Najee fest, man. That's what's going to happen. And Carolina's not very good against stopping the run. So to me, that adds up too easy. Give me some saving values there. It actually is kind of concerning me about the price tag. That being said,
I mean, we've gotten burned on that before.
We certainly have gotten burned on that before. I'm 100% on bus with you with the rookie Pacheco. One thing that I do stand by is in games I think are blowouts, give me second year guys or younger. They don't get pulled no matter what. Obviously, a rookie.
Can you do me a favor while you talk that out? And
yeah.
Actually, you keep talking that out. I'm gonna look it up because I'm really curious about Najee this week. According to Vegas.
Yeah, sure. So that's that's kind of my base starting point. I want to save some money early, get some players in the bank, and let's look at stuff. The quarterback one is the one where I am most blatantly biased, taking who's on my fantasy team in real life because I just want them to score points. This is not necessarily a great DFS selection. This is, I'm going to be rooting for T-Law regardless. I might as well put him on my lineup because, let's face it, I need some points. And if this game does become a shootout, which Jacksonville games are wont to do, and the Cowboys do fall in that trap of, hey, let's just play a shootout. Lawrence could go crazy. I do have him stacked, and this is the part of the reason I'm doing it. I did stack him with Kirk.
Okay.
Just because, my whole reason for drafting Kirk in the first place was you don't pay someone a stupid amount of money and then not give him the ball. And
I mean, it depends on what team you are.
Well, it's true, but Jacksonville actually did give him the ball. Give you a little evidence-based knowledge here. Guy's been consistent all year. He's had some valleys, but he also will peak. And
I mean, but they've been pretty consistent valleys too, though. So.
Yeah, this is my big thing. Last 5 games, 9 or he's getting the ball target consistently to him.
He's either above 70 or below 45.
Oh yeah, I mean that's where he's at. I'm liking him this week. I'm really liking Kirk here this week. So
I mean, like I said, that game could potentially be a game where the shootout happens and Trev can go for a bunch of points and Dak can go for a bunch of points. The only thing that worries,
it is.
I
actually think, to use the old college term, I think Dallas is in the middle of a letdown look ahead sandwich right now.
The only thing that worries me about Christian Kirk, it's not his talent. It's not that he's not going to get the ball. It's that when it comes time, and it's the same thing that goes for a lot of players, but it needs to be said, is that what are they doing with the targets that are given to them? And so what happened last week, we saw Ingram blow up for 33 points because he was the guy that day in the red zone. And so is Christian Kirk going to be the guy that's going to get the touchdowns, or is he going to be the guy that gets enough yards? So are we going to see a 7-point game out of Christian Kirk because he has 7 receptions and 65 yards, which is good in a game, and that could let the Jaguars be in this game to win it? Or is he going to have that game that's 7 receptions, 124 yards, and a touchdown, which is the game
I think it's more likely to have that. And the reason I think it's more likely to have that is Diggs. I mean, that's what Diggs does. Diggs will let up that big yards, but he'll come down with a pick So he's like the kind of guy in baseball who strikes out 3 times really badly, but he puts the ball 7 rows deep on his 4th at bat. That's how Diggs plays corner, which is not how you should do it. But nonetheless, I think Kirk's going to be the beneficiary of that. And Lawrence throws an interception all the time, and his stats still survive. So
let's hope. Let's hope.
That's where I'm at. I do think that one becomes a shootout there. So as I mentioned before, just to round out my points to answer everyone else I gave the easy answers for, I am taking Taysom Hill. I have ridden that Taysom Hill train all year. And, I want to go back to what our guest said. Taysom Hill should never come up the field. And quite frankly, just always give him the ball no matter what.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where I'm at there. We already mentioned it. I gave you kudos before. Devontae Smith's my dude, man. I don't know of any Heisman receiver that gets less love than Devontae. And
let's be serious there.
Yeah. I mean, tell me about it. I mean, it's just the way that it is. So now here's, Bob, where it gets interesting. I'm sitting here with 6,800, and I have flipped these last 2 selections around a bunch. Okay. And just trying to find a nice little happy zone. And I'm not totally sure I've done it yet. So on the one hand, like I said, 6,800, there wasn't a whole lot of great options here if I was trying to evenly split it. So you actually convinced me earlier with the Houston option to really go there. And I think I'm going to change up my lineup a little bit as a result of that, because I really liked how you sold me just looking at the Chris Moore stats at 6,000. And that gives me much more money to play with now in my flex. I think that's the find and the steal right there. That this is the guy who quietly is going to get drafted in the 6th round next year and is going to become a Moss St. Brown. Because it's so identical when you look at the numbers of where the two of them are at. And I really like it. So I want to give you massive kudos for that. Plus, you gave me a ton more money on my flex to go crazy. So with that being said, Kamara, no. Higgins, maybe. The hammy does scare me with Higgins. He's been great all year. But the one I'm going to go with, and this is kind of contrary to the rest of it, I know that you just went with Mike Williams, and partially to give a little bit of separation here, I'm going to go with Connor. And the reason I'm going to go with James Conner is, watch, this will be the week he gets hurt. But the reason I'm going to go with James Conner is that Colt McCoy is not going to run around for his life. Colt McCoy is going to hit the spot. If it's covered, he's checking down. And check downs is Connor. Check downs count. And I
Denver's defense is definitely beatable on the ground.
It is. It is. And if you're Arizona, I mean, if you're Arizona at this point, you're just trying to look good on Hard Knocks so everyone doesn't know you're pathetic, right?
Right.
I mean, that's the only thing they're really playing for right now. And, Denver, just keep earning that 1st round pick for Seattle. I mean, just keep going, do it. Keep going toilets, baby.
Absolutely.
So that's my lineup there, Bob. That's what I'm submitting.
Yeah, I mean, and this lineup seems like a lineup that, we have been wrong many, many, many times. And we're finding our way around it. But, this lineup seems like one of those ones where you're taking players in games where it's going to be decently close. There's going to be points scored in the game. There's no defensive juggernaut in any of these games. And these are all players that obviously get the ball. And so that's really important. And you've balanced out the budget pretty well. But going to the players that we're talking about in fantasy, if we have time, I'd like to do one more with.
All right, well, let's throw another one in here, Bob.
With an interesting thought here is that we take players that we have only players on our fantasy teams.
I just gave you one, which was only players from my fantasy team. Every single one of those guys I have.
Nope. We go back and forth. position by position. We can only take guys that have been on our fantasy team.
All right, let's see how this thing shakes out.
I'm curious if it will work. I know we like to do something interesting for the last one each week. And we can go.
Let's see how it rolls, baby.
We can go in multiple leagues. We can go in,
So the only stipulation is I'm in 3 leagues. You're in 3 leagues. We have to have owned him currently entering the play. Let's put a little extra hard mode on it. It has to be on one of your rosters that's in the playoffs right now.
Gotcha.
All right, Bob. First pick in the draft.
Big Daddy Cool
you can
Dog.
have it.
Big Daddy Cool Dog. I could go with both of these. I could go with one of these, but that defense is slamming. So I'm going to go with the other. Derrick Henry.
I mean, he's really been the giant elephant in the room that's going to make this entire game hard now that we spent all the money up front. But, I love Henry there. I mean, Chargers are a great team. I mean, I think that game game's going to be really a battle of who wants to control their identity. Because as much as Eckler is great fantasy-wise, and he really, really is, he's not a running back. He's a slot guy who's playing in the backfield. And Herbert completely controlled that game. Completely controlled that game against Miami until he fumbled the snap and almost charged it away. And he broke his record for most pass attempts. And the Chargers were in control the whole time. So with that being said, I am going to submit to you one of my boys who I have in Mr. Keenan Allen. And now we got to go cheap the rest of the way.
Well, we might not be able to. So let's see if that's going to happen.
We might have to drop some. This system might not work.
This is definitely a hard one here. All right.
Actually, here, I'll make it so we can play easier. I'll put Devontae up there. Because with Devontae, at least he's no. Let's do it right.
Keep him
so
in.
That way we don't implode this thing a little later on. That 800 is going to come into play, and I do love me Devontae.
All right, so I got.
Well, when we get the quarterbacks, Bob, I only have one option, and that's T-Law. So, because I got him in both teams, and that's the way it is.
I have, 2 of my quarterbacks play on Saturday.
That's an issue.
I got 2 other quarterbacks. So I've got T-Law and Goff.
Oh, dude. All right. So T-Law or Goff.
And I got Cousins and Carr. So, I mean.
All right. So T-Law is they're next to each other. There's like no real price difference there.
Take T-Law. It's the only choice we have.
All right.
So, I've got Garrett Wilson on my roster.
All right.
In the wide receiver position. He's probably priced pretty good.
78.
That's not bad.
All right, that's going to put us scrambling for some cash here. So at 57 here, the Giants aren't part of this window. So I can't give you Bellinger. My other tight ends are Hill and Schultz. Not really a whole lot of savings there. So I'm going to go with.
I also have Hill and Schultz.
Defense to save us money. And I'm just going to put the Steelers back in for all the reasons I argued before. So we're going to have to figure out how to get Hill or Schultz in here.
We might have to step down from Henry, and we can do that.
Let's see if we have to first. Do you want to go with Hill or Schultz?
Go with Hill for the reasons that you said. They got to get him the ball.
Yes, they do. All right, we look at the price check real quick. We're at 6,000.
Not bad. Not bad.
6 for 3 of them. It could be hard though. So let's go to wide receiver rooms. As I mentioned before, I got Najee on the cheap, so he's at 68.
He fits.
I think he fits these ships. That's where we're at right now.
I also have Pacheco.
I have Pacheco as well as starting in a playoff lineup, but again, it's 76. I don't think we get him and Garrett Wilson.
I have also David Montgomery, ETN, who I'm not really excited about. But I'm
not excited about Monty either.
I also picked up Rex Burkhead this week.
Yeah, that's not worth it. We're going to stick with Najee. All right, so we go to the wide receiver here. Who do we got in that wide receiver world? We're down to 5,800.
So I own Adams and Hopkins. You own CeeDee Lamb, Keenan Allen.
Unfortunately, I didn't make the playoffs in that one, so I can't use that lineup. I can use Hop and Godwin's, though.
I do not own any of these guys.
I also have Josh Palmer, but I'm not a fan of Josh Palmer this week for the simple fact that now Allen is back, and so is Johnson, or so is Williams, rather. Palmer didn't really tear it up last week with the most pass attempts ever. Palmer is great when one of the two of them are hurt, but otherwise it goes to those two. It's just the way that it is. Tom, have we ever seen Mike Evans under 7,000? Just as a side question.
I don't think so. Yeah. Maybe a couple times.
That looks a little unique to me. Stands out a little bit. I do own Gallup.
I own Corey Davis.
Well, Corey Davis is out. Gallup is in at 5,700. Who else down here in the cheap world do we even own? I own McCole Hartman, but that don't really help.
You own Hunter Renfrow, probably.
I have traded him away. I also traded away Julio.
Oh, man, we cannot. So Derrick Henry's not going to work.
Yeah, we're not going to be able to fit Henry in this. So we basically have to change Henry for Pacheco.
Or ETN or Montgomery.
Where's ETN at?
ETN's playing Dallas's defense, which is a tough matchup for him. He's not been
we're going
great.
Pacheco then.
He's
Pacheco for all the garbage time we talked about.
I also have Zeke.
Zeke is best friends with the quarterback. Zeke isn't getting the points he used to. All right, so we're at 6,400 with Pacheco. We only save $100 going to Zeke. I'd rather, unless we're going Connor, I'd rather put Pacheco in there. So we go to the wide receiver.
Do you own Connor?
I do own Connor.
Playoff matchup?
You want to go Connor instead of Pacheco?
You could go both. One in the flex, one in the regular.
All right, let's put Connor in the flex then and see what it looks like.
I mean, this basically looks like the lineup you just made.
It's got Garrett Wilson in it. All right, so we go to the wide receivers. But I wasn't kidding. I got teams that make the playoffs. I want to use my boys. Whoa, this gets.
We don't have any of those guys. But Michael Gallup.
I got Michael Gallup. I'm not kidding.
God.
Dude, we were able to make that happen.
I mean, I don't really think it's worth submitting, but I think it's fun to think about.
For $5, I think I'm submitting above. I'm not gonna lie.
I mean, there's no variation other than Garrett Wilson in your lineup. Garrett Wilson and Michael Gallup.
Yeah. Well, like I said, when I was making it in the first place, I was really having hard times debating it. I didn't have Pacheco in my lineup, but that's okay.
I'm just really curious. Can you build a lineup this week with Derrick Henry in it?
Well, let's click save here and see what it would look like if we attempt this. Click the old edit button.
Because you'd have to take a quarterback cheaper than Trevor Lawrence.
I think you got to put Mason in it. And if Mason ends up starting, in fact, that's what I want to do. I want to put Rudolph in it. And you give me starting quarterback at 6,000. We've
played that dirty game before.
Well, it's a roulette game because you don't know if he's starting or not. But if he does start, he's obviously not throwing for 500 yards.
Yeah,
and we're not going to get crazy with this. But he's basically helping you by existing for 1,500 less than the realistic.
All right, so let's take a look at the wide receivers then. because that always tends to be the position that we're struggling with.
All right, so we're at 6,400 average now, so we can't go super crazy. Henry, what we also messes up is we normally put in 2 mega expensive guys, and that messes with us. We danced around CD. The guy has really been tearing it up lately.
Yeah.
I just want to highlight this because, he had that down week last week, but
it was against
over the
Houston.
last 6 weeks, 16, 32 down
wide
week.
Receivers have not been doing well against Houston, so I get it.
Well, last week Houston he only put up that 6, and like I said, Jackson wants some points. I do think that's a shootout.
Yeah, Pollard went ham, so
I think that ends up being a shootout. I really do.
Yeah, I just don't think we can afford that.
All right, well he'll be the first out. Let's put it. Yeah, you're right. There's no way we can afford that. Take that out right now. Well, let's throw the defense and tight end in and see what kind of real money we end up with.
All right, so let's go with a defense that, much maligned defense.
I'm liking that Hot Atlanta font.
Curious about Detroit this week. I know I have not ever said that.
You shouldn't be.
I'm just interested. I'm also similarly interested in Cincinnati this week if I'm going to look at a bottom tier defense.
Because Tampa, Brady still, obviously if his name wasn't Brady, he wouldn't be the starter now. Do you think he has a respectable playoff game? Or do you think it is as ugly as the Philadelphia game was last year?
I think he'll want to go out in style.
I don't think we're at what Brady wants anymore. I think that Giselle kind of proved that.
Yeah, we'll really see what happens there. Denver is also another interesting thing, and
because he's going to play San Francisco in all probability, right? No, he'll play a wildcard team. Never mind.
Here's the thing that we said about the defenses is that there's a reason why the top defenses are priced the way they are, as we saw with Cleveland the previous week.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're taking a bottom barrel defense, you know that you are just hoping to not get negative points and that it's not really super adding to what you got. So out of the teams on this list, as in who's going to score points out of this list, I definitely don't see many of those teams scoring points.
I see Atlanta not letting up points.
No. That's what I'm saying is that that's not worth as many points as a defensive turnover and touchdown. So
yeah, but if we're just you lose points by letting them up. And I look at this as we're not going to get hung with a negative if we throw Atlanta out there.
I think you might.
I think you get hung with a Chicago negative.
I don't think you get hung with the Cincinnati negative or Denver negative.
Yeah, but that's more expensive. I'm talking cheap, man.
It's only 400. It's 400. I know 400 means a lot here.
All right, so we'll go with Cincinnati then, or Denver.
Cincinnati or Denver, because I don't really see those teams scoring lots of points.
All right, we're playing 2 old quarterbacks. One is benched, one is at home. Which one do you want?
I say go with Denver. Elements, mile high.
All right, Denver it is. That defense has been used so hard, and they get so little love for it. So running back world, all right, so we are at now 69 a man. We got back to respectable. I just want to throw it in as receiver now because I think we're going to do it anyway. The value you found on Moore from Houston, we're using it. I mean, he is the right selection. He is the correct decision, which also gives us a little bit more money down the road. We're now up to $7,000 a person. And there are no tight ends that are that expensive. So do you want to go with Schultz to spicy it up, or because both Schultz and Hill should have great games? They really should.
I mean, you can also, how do you feel about Freiermuth this week with potentially Mason Rudolph at quarterback?
It's hard to say. Those two never really truly played together when it's been all said and done. I do, in general, I love Freiermuth a whole lot more ever since the Claypool trade because it has opened up the field for him.
And also, how do you feel about Dulcich with Rippon as the quarterback? I mean,
I said in the beginning of the year, and I stand by this, I don't want to touch any player on Denver.
Fair enough. Who's below Everett? Because we didn't go below him.
Below me. So there, unless you go, there's a whole lot of nothing down there. Foster Moreau was supposed to be this great savior. I wrote him for a couple of weeks. He really not.
What about that Okanokwo? I mean, we got burned on Tennessee tight ends before, but that Okanokwo, I think, scored a touchdown last week. The only reason I say it is allows you to put CD in the lineup.
I don't like these touchdown dependent tight ends, Bob. I know Taysom Hill's getting the ball, and if it
Taysom
means
Hill Taysom Hill is a touchdown dependent player.
Well, every tight end is, but at least Taysom Hill has chances of other avenues.
I get it. I'm just saying, if you do want CeeDee Lamb in the lineup, that gives you an opportunity to put him
in. We'll figure out a way without CD. All right, we're at 7,300. We still might be able to make this work with CD. So let's get us a second running back. Xavier Knight's a guy we really, or Zavon Knight rather. Nope. All right.
Nope. Detroit's run defense is actually pretty decent.
It's hit or miss is what it is.
I mean, they stop Saquon. They can stop a guy named Zonovan Knight. I'm sorry.
Maybe they just own the New York teams. All right. Well, we'll let you go with that.
All right. Okay, hold on. 2 players. Interesting numbers. Could potentially get you a CeeDee Lamb too. How do you feel about DeAndre Swift and Donta Foreman?
I was actually going to bring up a third guy that I like more than both of them, but Swift to me is a conundrum because obviously he's got a massive touchdown vulture on his team that the city has swung behind. I think Swift was incredibly overrated entering this fantasy season. He had basically 4 good games at the end of the prior year. And as we look at him now, he seems like a guy who's on a ship that doesn't care he's on it. And as I think this through, I don't really want to jump on that.
Okay.
Devontae Foreman is the man down there now. But I don't like I don't like them playing against a defense to finally learn how to stop the run.
Okay.
And when we look at that, the Steelers might open up and start throwing it again. But if the Steelers put up basically any points in the first half, 10 or more, I don't think Devontae Foreman stays in the game. Now, with Mason Rudolph as the starting quarterback, or even if it's Trubisky, it's going to be a question of can they put up 10 in the first half? I can tell you that despite the 3 interceptions Trubisky threw, he moved the ball, but he didn't put it in the end zone. So the one that I find is the much safer pick of all of them, lets me point out to their week 1 performance against the same team, which is Patterson. In week 1, before he got hurt, he put up 21 against the Saints team. It was his best game. And obviously he did nothing on his first week back.
Right, you really, you don't need to sell me on this guy. You don't need to sell me on any guy from Atlanta because I'm really not buying it. So, like, if you want to take him, take him. But to be honest with you, in the past, I was so high on a couple of guys from Atlanta, and that team really doesn't have any idea what's going on. They have no identity. Nothing is going on.
Well, their identity was running the ball early, and it worked when they stayed with it.
I could see it working again because, they have a quarterback that's young.
It's the quarterback switch. Mariota's out.
And
I basically won it because I saw him already destroy the Saints. Like, that's my argument.
I'm not going to fight you on that. Pick him because he is a good player that has proven in the past that he can blow up. But I'm also curious about another running back situation, and that belongs to the New England Patriots.
All right.
I don't necessarily advise Patriots players at this point in time. However, Vegas has a beatable defensive front, and these guys, if you didn't want to play Mason Rudolph because you didn't know if he was playing or not over Trubisky, and you didn't want to really take that chance at 6,000. Ramondre Stevenson's status is very, very important this week because this will tell us a lot about what New England's going to do in that game. But last week when he went down, they played that Kevin Harris guy and that Pierre Strong guy pretty much neck and neck. And that price point is very, very attractive for a player that might start. And it's the Zamir White situation all over again.
It's a Patriots running back. Which one are they picking? There's no idea to know.
Well, yes and no. So they started with Kevin Harris. Then they went to Pierre Strong. And if you look at Pierre Strong's stats and Kevin Harris's stats, you'll see some evidence of that.
He had 5 carries. Now, granted, he broke one because he got 70 yards, but he had 5 carries and 2 targets. All right, so 7 of the 60 plays he was involved in. That's Strong. And Harris got 8 carries. So Strong is clearly
then you look at Stevenson. Go to Stevenson, see how many carries he was actually given before he hurt himself.
So your typical Stevens week is somewhere between 15 and 25 on average. So that's the same amount of carries, just evenly split. I mean, you nailed it on its head.
I'm just throwing it out there. If you are thinking about starting Mason Rudolph, but you're kind of on the fence about it.
Let's throw Strong in there, Bob, and let's get crazy. Let's just get crazy.
I mean, this could all change if Stevenson is healthy, by the way. So,
yeah, same with if Trubisky starts. But we're getting crazy right now. All right, so now, Bob, we are sitting here having saved all the money we got 9,200 for our last 2 spots here. We can't spend 9,200 across 2 players. Not at 2 receivers. It's not possible. So if we put, for instance, Chase and CD in, we still got 1,300. Where do you want to spend more money at?
I mean, do you want to put Chase in?
I'm not sure I want to put Chase in. I would actually, I'm not sure I want to put Chase in. I'm not sure I want to put Chase in for the simple fact that they can spread the ball around in Cincinnati, and they're going to pretty easily beat Tampa. And
I could see that.
They go to Chase more when they're stressed. He's the greatest life vest in the world right now. So, but if they don't need to, they tend to make it a Higgins game or a Mixon game. And the one that's, unless I'm mistaken here, been completely relied upon nonstop has been Devontae. Look at this. Aside from last week, we're looking at double-digit targets for the last 6 weeks.
We consistently ignore him because he's on
a bad team, but he's their only option. He's also still the best receiver in football.
Yeah, and New England's defense.
You can't take Devontae Smith out of a game. You just can't.
Devontae Adams. Yeah, I mean.
Sorry, man. Yeah.
Yeah. So.
All right. So, Bob, what this actually allows us to do is take Mason out and put a real quarterback in.
I mean, that's the idea.
All right. So that's the idea. That's what we got to here. That lets us come all the way up to the Dak attack. We can stack him with Lamb.
Does.
I like that. Gives us 300 left over if we want to try to upgrade somewhere else. The only spot really we could be looking at, I'm thinking, is the defense.
Yeah. So what would that upgrade us to it with 300?
4,000. We're looking at nothing really exciting.
Nothing at all.
No. This might be your lineup, Bob. This might be your lineup.
It's a possibility that it could work. Now, Pierre Strong might not be the guy, and the guy might be Kevin Harris this week. We really don't know what's going to happen. But what I like about the Pierre Strong is that in the stat sheet, at least, it shows me that he can break it.
Oh yeah. The other thing I like about it is that even if he zeros, right? Because we got Chris Moore and Adams, who are just such high volume guys, and obviously Henry is as well. This lineup might even be able to survive a zero. You know?
As long as Taysom doesn't zero out. That's the other thing.
It can't have 2 zeros. You can have 1, but it can't have 2.
I agree with that statement.
And again, I need Taysom to go big time. I'm projected to lose by 20 in that game, Bob. It could get ugly.
See, I think your brother's playing Taysom against me. I don't.
Well,
I think we looked at this, but then he changed.
I had a chance to go 3-peat, and it didn't happen. And I am just so sad. I am just so sad that I didn't.
I'm so happy.
That, Bob.
I mean,
I know you are. That's how you are. But I'm just sad.
29.7 against me because he had McCaffrey and Ayuk play. McCaffrey went off for 25.8. Ayuk went off for 3.
Yeah, Ayuk did.
He is starting Freiermuth at tight end.
Dude, I was a little upset. I thought Lockett was going to give me a little bit more. He was a late season trade I did to try to pick up there, and it just didn't happen for me. A little sad about that.
You know, Tyler Hufanga has been kicking butt, like the safety from the Niners that you picked up a couple weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious. We always like to look at defensive players prior to the playoffs beginning to see who had the best defensive player, because you always are like, I have the best linebackers.
I tend to have top 10 in all defensive positions.
So let's look. And let's see, all by scoring and by, let's go points. Okay. So before the playoffs started, and I'm not counting Jordan Brooks here because his stats are inflated from that game.
Well, here,
I'll
pull up the screen here for you. You want to go by position?
Go by defensive position, yeah.
Oh, sorry, I didn't click the button to bring up the screen. So this is how great we are here, guys. These are D-line, and that's by projected. Let me sort it by fantasy points scored. I have, of the D linemen, the 2nd and 4th option, as well as was at the 7th.
And I have the first.
I had Grover Stewart, and I cut him for bye week situation. So I really had 4 of the top 8 of D-line.
I have 2 of the top 3. Okay, moving on.
Okay, so let's go to the linebackers. Again, based upon points, I only had 1 of them.
What?
I only had number 8 there. Ooh, what am I doing? I'm slipping.
Ooh.
I'm slipping. Yeah. Oh, in my defense, Long would have been there. He just got hurt.
Slipping.
He just got hurt. Nonetheless, to your defensive backs, I have 3 of the top 10.
I have the 3rd.
That's the 7th.
Who is Jonathan Owens? Which one is he?
He's about 7. Yeah.
So I have 3 and 7. Who's Jalen Petra?
Pardon?
Who was the first one?
Oh, he's the safety for Houston. He's the one who makes all the damn tackles. That's why he makes so many points.
Oh, I got the other one.
It's Petre, by the way.
That's not bad. All right, let's go to tight end. Let's just go through all the positions for a moment. Let's just say here.
All right.
I know my quarterback sucks. I mean, that's not a question.
Number 1, baby.
All right, Big Daddy Trev Dog, Jared Goff.
And Cousin ends up finishing in 12th. So 1 and 12. I should have made the playoffs.
Hey, I still have 2 of the top 11 quarterbacks. All right. Okay.
Yeah. Look at you over there, Mr. PC. All right, we're in the backs. This is really where my team imploded because you will not see Najee anywhere in this list at all. So Miles Sanders, bails me out there. And then classic me, let's just start dotting from about 10 to 20. So we have the nice little selection. But, running backs should have been the strong suit of my team, and they didn't. And that's why I'm not in the playoffs. So wide receiver world.
Actually, can you sort it by average after we do this?
I'll sort by average right now.
Yeah.
So
Ricky with Tyreek and Justin Jefferson.
Hard to beat that. But again, in a league where you can play 4 of them, having 3 of the top 12 is strong.
Did you have Marquise Brown before he went down too?
Nope. Picked him up.
Nice.
But I do have Lockett, so that's the one I was really counting.
You dog.
So you're looking at 4 of them right there.
That's not bad.
Tight end. Obviously, I don't invest in tight ends. To get to my little red dot, you got to go all the way down there to Higbee. And I don't think I even have a second one on my team.
Obviously.
And you're sitting there with Goddard and Andrews. So
now I did a lot of trading to get Andrews. At one point in time, I had Kyle Pitts on my team. So
I believe at one point I had Taysom. Taysom Hill's a free agent, dude. Paul doesn't have him.
Paul did have him.
But nonetheless. And then that is the last most important one.
Kickers. Oh man, my kickers have been awful this year.
We can't do this by average because too many of them get cut. But here's how good we are. We never picked up the 3rd best kicker or beyond. We just let it ride. Imagine how many games.
Wait. So you're telling me that 1, 2, 3, the 3 of the top 10 kickers.
5 of the top 10. 5 of the top 10 are currently free agents.
Awesome. And I've been dealing with the fucking Greg Joseph situation for a while now, and I didn't even fucking realize that.
Dude, you could have joined Mayer.
Could have got the Nick Folk Club. I picked up Eddie Pinheiro this week, though. I don't know. I'm thinking about starting him.
Dude, how is Robbie Gold still relevant?
Robbie Gold. I love Robbie Gold, man.
I feel like he's
a talent.
Was there another Gold when we were growing up, or has he had just been kicking for like 23 years?
Look up his Wikipedia page. Type him in. Robbie Gold.
Let's have his actual age here. He looks old.
I mean, he kicked for the Bears for a long time.
Yeah, I know.
And
I feel like he's also kicked for the Niners for a long time.
I feel like he's kicked for the Niners for a couple years. I feel like he's also kicked for Tampa Bay. I know.
That's what they were the Stan Kellers, though. They'll get you that way.
A lot of his stint was in Chicago, though. He's 40. He's a man. He's 40.
Nice.
Undrafted 2005.
Yeah, so all right, so I am right. This is the guy I thought of. He got drafted. We got drafted when we were young. He's just been in the league forever.
So he got drafted before we graduated from college. He got drafted when we graduated from high school.
Yeah, like that is
wow.
That is crazy. Robbie Gold tech people.
He's been with the Niners since 2017. That's got to be one of the longest tenured kickers in an organization for a little while now.
Yeah, I mean, well, obviously there's 2 in our division that are longer than that, but
well, I mean, other than the good ones, I wouldn't necessarily call Gold a good one.
But it's longevity in the kicking game, man.
Yeah, but Tucker's been around for all right. How long has Tucker been around for?
Tucker's been around a very long time. Give you some knowledge on this.
Is he 42? Are the best kickers 40? He's got to be like 42. He's 33 years old, Justin Tucker.
Yeah, he's breaking all the records.
Get out of town.
How about
He
the
was
Boz?
drafted. He was drafted in 2012. And the Ravens have not let him go. His field goal percentage is 91%.
Boswell is 31 and probably will be our kicker for another 7 years.
Oh, God, that's a disappointment.
Dude, he's actually really, really good. He's the second most accurate quarterback in the NFL, or a kicker in the NFL right now.
All right, I'm going to go with the oldest NFL kickers.
Do active. Give me active.
Oldest NFL kickers active. Because, yeah, it was giving me George Blanda. It says that Adam Vinatieri is still...
Oh, to our listeners out there on that note, we do have an important poll question that we would like you guys to chime in on. Are you more prone to drink in a moment of victory or a moment of defeat? It's an important question. We want to get a feel for our audience. We feel this is a great way to find out.
Okay.
And also, thank you for pointing out that I love Najee. I never have said I didn't. Just very sad by him.
7. All right. So, well, who is the oldest kicker in NFL in 2022? Robbie Gould is listed as 39 years, 8 months, 30 days when this article came out in November.
So they've all aged the same amount.
He is older than Aaron Rodgers. Looks like he's older than Mason Crosby.
Okay.
All right. So Mason Crosby is 38. Nick Folk is
Legatron's got to be up there.
Prater is 38. Suckup is 36. Graham Gano is 35. Legatron is on this list. He has played 11 seasons.
Oh, that's it.
Graham Gano has played 13 seasons.
See, this is just the proof that people will select something that someone else has picked. That I would rather have someone who's a middle of the road guy, but know he has been out there before, than to take someone who's actually stronger legged, but unproven.
Mm-hmm.
This is really a proof that the head is more important than the leg in the mind of GMs around the NFL, which is a mistake, but it's proof of it.
I mean, when you're looking at kickers, you need a kicker that's gonna not choke it away, and we've seen plenty of kickers with nice legs all the time. I mean,
love your sound effects.
It happens. So I mean, like, that's one of the things that when you have a reliable kicker, and like when we talk about the kickers from our generation who came up, we're talking like Adam Vinatieri, Mike Vanderjagt. You're talking, Gold. You're talking, who else would be on that list?
Reed,
you still have the Andersons kicking. You still have the Andersons kicking. What?
Kicking off those toilet bowl racked sheets. Jeff Reed,
tracksuit, Jeff Reed. I mean, oh man, that was so fun that day when we met Jeff Reed and he was wearing that ugly tracksuit.
So velour. Oh man.
Maybe we'll grace the listeners with a picture of that in another form of media.
There's no way I still have a picture of that.
Oh, I have it on Facebook. It's there. And when you're wearing that NASCAR hat, it's a gross picture. It really is. I don't know what makes it gross, that blue NASCAR hat or Jeff Reed's tracksuit.
It's definitely.
That should be another poll.
Your poll next week, Bob. Maybe that'll be the background picture for our thumbnail. Send that over. I'll make that happen.
Oh my god! All right, I'm looking it up right now.
Oh man! But Jeff Reed had the record for like most consecutive hits in Heinz Field.
What do you mean? That like he hit other people, or like?
No, that like not missing a field goal. Because remember when Heinz Field was first built, before they closed off the Riverside, no one could hit it.
Yeah.
Then we had that hockey game in Heinz Field. They closed it off and never opened it up again.
Yeah. So, all right, let's go.
Well, we got a Purgatory out of it, so that there's something.
I liked Purgatory for a long time. Then I went off the Purgatory train, man. Like,
maybe we should get back on the Purgatory train.
I don't know. It's not that great, man. Like, it used to be really, really good. But here, I gotta search like,
dude, I love Purgatory. Who doesn't want to eat a gator or some bison in the same
I like
meal?
gator, but I had a better gator burger over at Muddy Waters Oyster Place. And I just gotta say, like, that one for me was definitely way, way better than anything I've ever had at the Purgatory. All right. There's a picture of Ricky there. There's a picture of you getting the jacket. Oh, man, there's a picture of the ugly NASCAR hat. No.
Bob, we'll have to put this up another week because I do not have the technology to be able to do that on the fly.
Yeah, I'm trying to find it. I'm not going to find it right now. I'm just looking.
Just saying.
Those are quite the pictures.
All right. Well, with that being said, Bob, unless you got some random thought of wisdom here for everyone entering their playoffs.
I mean, random thought of wisdom. Play who got you there. As long as they're in a pretty decent matchup, don't be afraid to play somebody you just picked up too, because that's why you do it. That's why you picked him up. You picked him up to play him, so play him. If he's sitting on your bench and he scores 40 points, and you're equally going to be upset if he goes off for 40 as you would if you benched your guy that you've been starting for a long time. Definitely look to Vegas's odds. As some people have suggested, if you're looking to the odds, they're not in the game to lose money. So, of course, people can go way over that. But, I mean, you take an example of that. Najee, I believe, is sitting at the over-under is sitting at 54 or 58. And so if you have Najee on your lineup and you're deciding between, say, Najee and Zonovan Knight or something like that, take a look at what Vegas is thinking about. Take a look at that. See who's more likely to score the touchdown, and go with it, because that's probably going to be what's happening.
Pacheco, baby. Pacheco for 2 this weekend. Told you guys already that parlay. Pacheco for 2.
I just need to point out that this isn't the picture of Jeff Reed, but this is the picture of that hat.
You just covered the whole thing, Bob. You just broke this. Bob, in fact, I'm going to turn this off before you break the internet.
Here's a picture of that hat. You turn it off yet?
I'm giving you a chance. I don't know why I'm giving you a chance.
There's that hat.